Before we start, I'd like to ask you guys to give me feedback in the comments. Did you like this video? What can I do to improve? Is the background music fitting or is it annoying? Is the background video entertaining? I know that to you I'm just a faceless YouTube channel, but to me this channel means a lot. I actually want to create the best videos and grow as creator. I want to thank you all, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. Today, I finally got over my fear of speaking up. Alright, so a little background. I've always been known as the quiet person in the room. Whether it's at family gatherings, among friends, or in work meetings, I was the one who would just listen and nod along, afraid that my thoughts weren't good enough or that I'd say the wrong thing. I think it all started back in high school when I made a dumb comment in a class discussion and people laughed. I laughed too, pretending to brush it off, but deep down I was embarrassed and it stuck with me. Over the years, this fear of being judged grew into a habit of silence, and I became a master at keeping my opinions to myself. Fast forward to a few months ago, and I found myself in a new job at a fast-paced tech company. This was a great opportunity, but in my first few meetings, I couldn't shake my old habit. Even when I knew I had valuable input, I stayed quiet. I'd go home feeling frustrated, knowing I could have added something to the discussion. My manager noticed and eventually brought it up, suggesting I try being more proactive in meetings. To me, it felt like a subtle nudge that I needed to change, but I didn't know how. The fear of being judged still felt stronger than my need to speak up. Things finally came to a head in a team meeting last month. We were brainstorming ideas for an important project, and I had spent hours researching, coming up with what I thought was a great idea. My heart was racing, and I knew this was the perfect opportunity to share. But when it came time to contribute, I froze up. My manager moved on to someone else, and the meeting ended without me saying a word. I went home that day with a sinking feeling in my stomach, replaying that moment in my head over and over again. It was then that I realized my silence wasn't just a quirk. It was holding me back, and I was the only one who could change it. That weekend, I decided to work on this. I wrote down all the reasons why I was afraid to speak up, like, I'll say something dumb, or people won't care what I think. I looked at each fear and thought about all the times I'd seen people make mistakes, yet nobody held it against them. I realized I was way harder on myself than anyone else ever was. So I made a plan. Every day, I'd start with small steps. First, I'd speak up in casual settings like with friends or family. Then I'd try offering my opinion at work, even if it was just a small comment. The first few days were rough. I'd open my mouth to say something and then quickly shut it as my mind filled with doubts. But I kept pushing myself. I'd think, just say it. The worst that happens is someone disagrees. Slowly, it became easier. One day, I managed to voice a suggestion to my boss about a minor process change, and to my surprise, he loved it. That little moment of positive reinforcement felt like a huge win. Then, last week, my big test came. We had a project meeting with our director present. Everyone was sharing ideas, and I knew it was my chance to step up. I'd spent a few days working on a proposal that I genuinely believed could improve our workflow. As the moment to speak approached, I felt the same familiar fear, but I remembered all the little wins I'd been collecting. I took a deep breath and finally just went for it. I outlined my idea as clearly as I could, trying not to overthink each word. As I finished, there was a short silence and my stomach dropped had I made a mistake. But then, my manager nodded thoughtfully and said, "That's actually a fantastic idea. I think this could really work." Even our director chimed in, mentioning he was impressed with my insight. My teammates gave positive feedback, and one of them even reached out after the meeting to say she was glad I finally spoke up, because my idea made the entire project better. That day, I walked out of the office with my head held high, feeling a sense of pride and relief that I hadn't felt in years. Sure, it's just a small step, but for me, it feels like a victory. It taught me that my voice is worth hearing, even if it shakes at first. I won't pretend that I'm suddenly the most vocal person in the room, but I no longer feel invisible or stuck behind my own fears. I realize that growth doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of countless tiny steps that add up over time. If anyone reading this feels like they're stuck in their own head, I hope my story helps. Start small. Allow yourself to stumble a bit. It's a process, but once you take that first step, you might just surprise yourself.